Hello there. Welcome to our second Motivational Monday video. I've been contemplating what video I wanted to do, but one that has stuck out to me for years kept coming to mind. So I figured that I would share it with you. Now, a little bit of a story time with this motivational video. So I got Facebook when I was 9, I think. And I remember that I would be like on my laptop or on the desktop at the house scrolling through videos on Facebook. And I remember I came across this motivational speech given by Deshauna Barber, who was Miss USA, I believe 2016. And when she competed, she was telling the story of how it happened. And it was really such a powerful story that it stuck with me. It inspired me to wanna do pageants, not that that would happen until years later, but, it was her commitment to it that stuck out to me. So she worked in Target, and while she's working in Target, she has a lady come in and is just staring her down. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience, but that's pretty odd experience to have, and so, she's doing her job, lady comes up to her, she's like, "How can I help you? Can I help you find something?" And she is proceeded to ask a bunch of sensitive, almost offensive questions about, was she married? Did she have kids? All these things. And she handles it way better than most people would have handled it. Because most people, when they're asked offensive questions, immediately get on their guard, shut the person down, talk awful things about them. But she was very graceful about it. And she listened to the woman, and the woman told her that she was one of the most beautiful women that she had ever seen. And she really thought that she had what it took to be the next Miss USA. And she was 19 years old, Deshauna was. And so, this woman's name is Leslie. And when Leslie met with her the following day and explained what pageants were and talked to her about it, she convinced her to go and compete in her local pageant. Now, the process of Miss USA is a little bit different than Miss America, but the idea is that you compete for a local and or a state before you can go and compete at Miss America. So for her, she was put in to compete in the state pageant in 3 months after hearing about pageants. And, she decides to go and she faces a lot of battles along the way, going dress shopping and not liking her body and not feeling like confident and having to be reinsured after she hears all of the bullies and all of the bad comments about her through high school, reflected in the mirror as she's trying on these dresses. And, she makes it through that and she overcomes that experience and she's able to go and compete. Leslie told her something really powerful in this dress store. She told her that, you know, all that requires for you to win is to believe in yourself because if not you, then who? And, that gave her the strength that she needed to go and compete in that first competition. She didn't win. And she competed again and didn't win. And she competed a total of 6 times. And on her 6th time, her father was like, I think this is it. I think it's time to give up. One, not that you it's not that you can't win. It's that I don't think that they're going to let you win. I faced that feeling. And just feeling like I didn't fit what they were looking for, that it didn't matter. So I completely understand where she was in this. But she reached out to Leslie and she was like, Leslie, what's going on? You said I had what it took, but I've been doing this for 6 years and nothing's coming of it. And Leslie, encouraged her to keep going. She promised that she would do it. And so when she decided to compete, for the 7th time, she was like 2 weeks before competition, and she went to reach out to Leslie to let her know that this was when the competition was happening. She finds out that Leslie passed. Leslie was battling leukemia, and so on top of going through all of these her own trials with this, the consecutive times being told no, dealing with the conversations with her family and the insecurities that she had, and all of the other life things that were going on. She finds out that someone very close to her, the person who was convinced she could do this, is no longer here. And she decided to compete still for Miss USA. And when she competed for Miss USA the seventh time, she won. And it was really holding on to Leslie's memory and holding on to that quote, if not me, then who? Or if not you, then who? That carried her through it. And I personally, when I'm talking about things that have motivated me or inspired me or, gotten me to where I am today, I do very similar to what Deshauna did, where she's, was looking back on it and she was like, life wouldn't be the same had she not walked into Target that day, had I not been working at Target that day. And this whole trajectory of her life for the last 7 years would have been completely different. And she never would have probably competed in pageants had it not been for Leslie. But she did that. And so this whole story is being told in a commencement address that she is giving at some graduation ceremony.
At times, our purpose drops in our laps as if the heavens threw it by accident. I ask only one thing of you all today after you leave this building, after accomplishing an amazing goal. Do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret. As giving up is the birth of regret. After you walk out this door, you will receive 100 doors shut, slam in your face. You will have 100 moments that will be filled with someone telling you no, or telling you, thank you for your application, but we regret to inform you that we've chosen a different candidate for this job. You will sit in 100 different interviews and you will not get the job. The reality of life is that we will all hear more no's than we hear yeses. And we will fail a lot, and I mean a whole lot. But what I ask of you today is to not take no for an answer. Don't be afraid of no's. Be afraid of the possibility of a yes that you have prematurely destroyed because you decided to quit before the clock strikes 12.
I love how she mentions the sometimes our purpose falls into our laps as if the heavens threw it by accident. Um, I feel that a lot. And I think a lot of purposes happen that way. Like, there are those who are lucky enough to know, get go. Their whole life, they know exactly what they want to be and what they need to do to get there. And then there are those who are on one path that leads to another path, that leads to another path, until finally it kind of falls into their laps. And they're like, oh, this is what I've been meant to be doing the whole time. And sometimes it does feel accidental. But then I look back, and one of my favorite thoughts is, God is in the hindsight. And so, you look back and you're like, wow, if anything would have changed, if anything would have been a little bit different than it was, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I think that that is so powerful when we're talking about motivation, because if you've ever questioned why you're doing what you're doing, go back and look at where you've been. And you'll find that passion again. You'll find that drive again. You'll find the reason why you started doing this all in the first place. One of the parts of this video that has stuck with me all this time is her, do not fear failure, but please be terrified of regret. I think that that is such a profound message to share, because failure is guaranteed. The fact that we are flawed human beings in an imperfect world, with a lot of things happening around us that we have no control over, means that failure is guaranteed. What we can do, though, is choose which failures we're okay with. And I find that when you have made the choice to give it everything you've got, if you miss the mark, you tend not to regret that, because at the end of the day, you did everything you could have done to get there. You didn't give up. You didn't, leave any room for that regret of, oh, what if I would have just competed one more year? What if I just would have, reached out to that one more business or that one more sponsor, or, whatever it is in your own life? There's no room for regret when you know that you've done everything you could do. But if you don't do everything you can do, you will always wonder, what if? And that breeds regret. So be terrified of it. I love the part about the fact of reality, or the matter of reality, is that we will all experience more no's than we do yeses. In a perfect world, everything would go according to plan, but it's not a perfect world. And the idea that if you put it out there, then it'll come back to you isn't guaranteed. And so being okay with the no's, being willing to experience a no because you're aware that that might have been the wrong move for you. But that means the next one could be a yes, or it could be another no. I mean, she competed 6 years. Now, having competed in pageants, that is not an easy feat. The money that goes into it, the time that goes into it, the passion and heart and drive that goes into it, to not win, that's gut-wrenching on a level. And we all have our own personal experience of how that goes, but for her, she competed her 7th time 2 weeks after she found out that she lost somebody very dear to her, who had been gone for months. And she didn't get to say goodbye, and she didn't get to do this, and she didn't get to be there for that. And had she given up right then, right there, who knows if she would have ever been able to be Miss USA. But she competed anyway, even though it was hard. One of my favorite quotes is, of course it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But hard doesn't make it impossible. And I think oftentimes what separates those that achieve their goals and are motivated to push through from those that don't is those who are willing to do it even though it's hard. Even though you get no's. Even though it sucks and you have to do again and do it again and do it again, or change tactics and start over. You keep going, because while you may experience more no's than yeses, the possibility of a yes makes it all worth it. And that's exactly what she's saying, where she's, telling us to be terrified of giving up the possibility of a yes because we decided to quit before the clock strikes 12. It may have been on the 12th strike of midnight, the very last second that the yes comes. We don't get to decide that part. What we get to decide is what we do. I was I was in a conversation with someone a couple months ago, and they asked me, what is freedom really? Like, what's the definition of freedom? And my response was the ability to choose. Because there are so many definitions and lines drawn of what is our freedoms and what is not. But at the end of the day, we will always have the ability to choose how to act, to choose how to respond, to choose where we put our energy and our focus and our passion and our time. That's all up to us. We can't control the responsibilities of everybody else or the results that we get when they're dependent on someone else's choices. But we do get to choose where we are at the end of the day. And if we get to that strike of midnight and we've given it everything we've got, then there is no more room for any kind of regret or dissatisfaction with it, because we did everything we could do. And I love that, because her takeaway of this entire message is this idea of, if not me, then who? And with that philosophy, for everything you do, the question should always be, well, if I don't start this business, then who? And if I don't advocate for this resource, then who? And if I don't go to work and give it my very best, then who? And there are so many fill in the blanks you could put there that really make the whole thing worth it when we talk about that. And she ends her talk by talking about welcoming no's, being motivated by no's and propelled into the next phase by no after no after no. For me, I've been working on this nonprofit and this idea of mental health advocacy and grief resources since 2023. We are almost 2 years into the conception of this idea. And I am still receiving no after no after no. But if I quit, who knows how much longer it'll be until the next person says, hey, this is a problem that we need to address. We all have something in our lives that we're passionate about, that means something to us, that we have been waiting to see somebody else make the difference. But if not you, then who?